Today, a first for the Vatican. The Catholic Church displayed bones that had been disputed for many, many years. A handful of disputed bone fragments thought to belong to St. Peter, the first pope ever. Well, the remains were displayed at a mass. They were found in the 1940s during a Vatican archaeological dig. Without DNA evidence, no one can confirm if the bones are, in fact, Peter's. In 1968, Pope Paul VI said they were identified, quote, in a manner which we believe convincing. The Vatican is also preparing for what some are calling its most important summit in decades. Pope Francis hosts Russian President Vladimir Putin tomorrow. The men don't have a whole lot in common, but they do see eye to eye on one issue. Here's CNN's Phil Black.
It is a meeting of two very different international statesmen. Vladimir Putin, the Russian president with an authoritarian style, often criticized for allegedly rolling back human and political rights, and Francis, the Catholic Pope, whose humility has reshaped the image of the Catholic Church around the world. What could these two men possibly have to talk about? Well, one issue will dominate this meeting. It is Syria. Both men are very concerned about the fates of Christian minorities in the Middle East, especially in Syria, and both men are strongly opposed to international military intervention in the Syrian civil war and argued strongly against it when the United States was moving to punish Syria's government for allegedly using chemical weapons. On this point, they form an unlikely alliance. The popular Pope provides moral authority to Russia's position, and the Vatican gets the support of a powerful country with a Security Council veto that has consistently shown it is prepared to stand up to international policy it does not agree with. It's not the first time Vladimir Putin has met with the Pope. He spent time with both John Paul II and Benedict XVI, but relations between Russia and the Vatican have never been great, largely because of historic rivalries between the Russian Orthodox and Roman Catholic churches. This meeting could signal a change to that, with some analysts predicting it could possibly lay the groundwork for a historic papal visit here to Russia. Phil Black, CNN, Moscow.
And a visit to Russia would be another achievement for a pope who has already set himself apart from his predecessors. John Allen is CNN's senior Vatican analyst and a senior correspondent with the National Catholic Reporter. He's joining us via Skype from Denver. John, good to see you.
Hey, Frederica.
So is all this setting up a Russian visit by Pope Francis a reality? Is it very significant?
Well, that would certainly be the Vatican's dream scenario, Frederica. I mean, as far back as John Paul II, popes have wanted to go to Russia, not only because it's politically important, but because it's got the largest Orthodox Christian population in the world. And personally, my bet is Putin would love to be able to welcome Francis, because what politician wouldn't want the chance to welcome the most popular guy on the planet right now? The problem he faces is serious opposition from the leaders of the Russian Orthodox Church, who worry that a papal visit would encourage Catholic growth in Russia, that is, Catholic proselytism. So the more realistic scenario, and this is something that's been floated both in the Russian and the Italian media, is that they might be able to engineer a summit between the Pope and the Russian Orthodox Patriarch on a neutral site, for instance, Vienna, as a step towards improved relations between the Vatican and Russia generally. And that is something that this meeting between Francis and Putin might be able to advance, Frederica.
So this Pope, clearly very popular, and it's happened in less than a year. How much more influence does that give him on the world stage?
It's enormous, Frederica. I mean, I'm in regular contact with diplomats who are accredited to the Vatican from all over the world. Remember, the Vatican is a sovereign state. It has diplomatic relations with 181 countries. These people will tell you that interest in the foreign ministries that they represent and the governments they represent is at an all-time high in terms of what the Vatican is doing, in terms of what Pope Francis is thinking. And that, of course, is because politicians and diplomats have great radar for popularity, that they know who the market movers out there are. And they know right now that Pope Francis is one of the premier market movers on the global stage. That is, his popularity and his moral authority has the power to change opinion. We saw that in September when he launched this full-court press against a Western military intervention in Syria. Diplomats, politicians around the world are interested in when he's going to spend some of that political capital next.
All right, and John, help us understand the significance of what I mentioned earlier, these bones, these disputed fragments of what may be the first pope to be put on display today. Why did this happen? Why now?
Well, because this was a mass marking the end of what the Vatican calls a year of faith. This was something launched under Benedict XVI, a kind of year-long attempt to ask the 1.2 billion Catholics around the world to deepen their faith, their commitment to the Church. And of course, St. Peter, by tradition, the first pope, is a figure that sort of summons Catholics to do that. Now, I mean, as you say, this is one of those eyes of faith versus the findings of science deals, because the truth of it is, nobody really knows if these are actually the bones of St. Peter. But seen through the eyes of faith, they are relics that remind Catholics of Peter, that they call them to a deeper devotion to Peter and to the office of the papacy, and that's what Francis was trying to accomplish this morning.